Okay, ready to move on? I hope you've got your one thing in the domain of systems. We're going to do one more exercise, and we're going to look at the physical spaces that make up your office. Now, physical spaces are comprised of many things. There's tables and chairs. There's anything in the space that you can sense with an organ, your eyes or your ears. For example, by a show of hands, who was aware of that music playing in the background for the last 20 minutes? And in our formula for creating habits of capability and motivation and barriers and temptations or distractions, where did it live? Distractions, right? Temptations that distract us from being focused. I don't know how many of you have yourself or have colleagues who listen to music while you work and who have a story about it that it really makes me focused. Are you that person? No? Good. Because there is no supportive research that says listening to music while you work makes you more focused. It does help while you're exercising, though, which is why we arranged for this band to come and distract you. It's a pleasure. So let's look at the physical spaces, and remember it includes things like music or sound, white noise, the aroma in the space. In our office, we pump in a scent that is a mixture between citrus and chamomile, and the reason we're doing that is we want to create the sensory environment that is both energetic and calm. Sounds like they're oxymoronically opposite, but we're wanting our team to be feeling like they're free of stress, and when we need them to put in the effort, there's that boost of energy. Now, some of these things are a little more subtle and you may be interested in doing, so let's look at some of the areas that you could go to work on. The design of your office space, so where people sit, on what they sit, or whether they sit at all, like standing desks and other opportunities for people being more in movement. Where you place the decor, and specifically what that decor is. You know, so many offices are designed by firms that want offices to look good. And there's a different mindset that is emerging in office design, which is performance space design rather than office space design, meaning offices designed for the purpose of supporting human performance. Now, having a beautiful picture of the mountains on the wall may be nice, but it's not necessarily the visual stimulus that has people prepared to work. So it might be pictures of others in action, or pictures of people doing the kinds of things that are a reflection of your values and norms or the behaviors that you want to instill as part of your culture. So think about how your office space is decorated. Think about the stimulation in there. Sound, smell, light. If you've ever worked in a low light or artificial light office environment, you would have felt the lack of energy at the end of the day. You may have noticed earlier we had natural light coming in, which is great for how you may feel, but terrible for seeing the slides. So we changed it, and it has an impact on how you feel in the space. Lighting, more than anything else, in terms of sensory experiences in an office, can affect your circadian rhythm, and that has an impact on your sleep. We now know that people who are exposed to natural light early in the morning are likely to sleep better, and people that avoid blue light in the evening are likely to sleep better. Now, that's something you want to do at home, but at work, giving people the opportunity to sit near windows, especially in the morning, is a way to have their circadian rhythm really flow. In other words, have the energy you're supposed to have during the day and not be asleep during the day. And last but not least is this idea of choice architecture, which is designing choices in a way that makes the healthy choice the easy option. And there are some simple examples. If you have a 3-floor office and you have a dirty, smelly, cigarette butt-ridden stairwell and an elevator, the easy choice that the architects have designed for people is to take the elevator. Well, with a little bit of effort at gentrifying the stairwell, you might make that the easy choice. When it comes to the food that you offer, the default choice here this morning for you was healthy food. You had to make some effort if you wanted unhealthy food, either bring your own or really figure out where in this building is a vending machine. And I haven't found one yet, thankfully. So you start to get the idea, I hope, of the different aspects that you have. And now I want you to put on the hat of a space designer, and that may not be something that you're familiar with. But think about what some other companies have done. They have built in their office spaces walking paths or standing desks, or they have active living signage. But what I mean by that is they have pictures of people around the office doing things like the exercises we did today. And you may say, well, that makes no difference at all. Let me give you a sense of how powerful visual signage is. I know many of you work in the healthcare area, and one of the biggest problems in healthcare today, still, believe it or not, is the rate at which doctors don't wash their hands. In most hospitals where this has been tracked, about 50% of doctors are washing their hands as recommended. Not at all, but as recommended. And there's been many ways to try and improve that statistics. And some ways include, have nurses say something to doctors, which generally doesn't go well if you know what it's like as a nurse to work for a doctor. One of the most effective ways has been not putting up a sign for doctors to say, please wash your hands, but putting up a picture above the sink of another doctor looking down with a scornful look on her face. And it's all the message that needs to be sent to have other doctors more likely to wash their hands. Because we watch what other people do, and we do what we see, even when that other person is just a picture on a wall. So think about it, close your eyes maybe for a moment now, and think about what the decorations look like on the wall decorations in your office now. Picture them if you can, and ask yourself if they promote healthy activity during the workday. And if not, what might you do differently? In one of our clients' offices down the hallway, they put a hopscotch course. And mostly people's reaction to it when they first saw it was, this is silly and ridiculous. And then after about 2 or 3 weeks, we noticed that when people weren't being watched, pretty much everyone did it. So now I heard a few of you mention things like funding gym memberships. Notice that that's not actually a spaces thing. That's really part of systems, but that's what's being suggested often when we do these kinds of workshops is people say, well, let's just remove or put in the space incentives for participation or discounts on going to the gym. I'm not looking for solutions here on how to make it easy for people to work out after work or outside of work. I want your focus to be entirely on how to make it possible inside of work. And remember, just like in the last case study, the context is you don't have any budget necessarily, or you have a very limited budget. So before we go to work on this, I want to prepare your brain for thought, for creativity, for stamina, and for avoiding errors. So please join me and stand up. And we're just going to do some tiptoes. So what that looks like is standing on your tiptoes, maybe walking around. You should feel the stretch on your calves. You can do a yawn and a stretch if you like. Just walk around your table maybe. Smile at somebody. You're up. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you ready for some work? Take your seats, please.
All right, with our designer hats hopefully still on, we're going to do an activity here very similar to what we just did. We'll do it a little bit more quickly this time. And you're welcome to no longer think about Maria so much as your own company, perhaps you in your position if you're the person in charge of wellness in your organization. This time we're going to focus on the spaces context. Some of you may find this one a little bit easier. In this case, I'll ask you again to spend just a few minutes thinking to yourself about spaces level interventions or recommendations for redesigning the spaces context in your organization. And then again, pick a partner. It could be the same partner, it could be a different partner, and spend a little bit of time exchanging the ideas you came up with, and then we'll expand to the larger tables after that.
You should all have written down 4 or 5 things now and circled, I hope, or put a cross next to the one thing you actually will do. By a show of hands, is there a commitment in the room to do at least one thing in this area starting tomorrow? Yes? Awesome. Now, you've gone to work on systems, and you've gone to work on physical spaces, or the office design, or physical design of your space. What we're not going to have you do now is an exercise in the other 2 contexts. Why? Because they are more similar across different companies. Specifically, the context of the self, which is made up of things like our own biology and the way our brains work, but specifically the decisions and the choices that we make based on our own experiences and our beliefs, what you might call your mindset. If your mindset is, or your story about yourself is, I'm not the kind of person that exercises, and you come along to that person and say, we've got a wonderful new program, why don't you come and join our walking meeting? They'll turn you down flat. Of course. So you may want to think very carefully about the stories you can tell people to change their mindset and make it one in which exercise at work is something that not only occurs for them as possible, but as exciting. And last but not least, of course, is how we feel about things. And if you're stressed out and distracted and annoyed, the last thing you probably want to do is participate with other people in some kind of exercise. And this really comes back to the question of culture. And it may have occurred to you that if you're in the business of trying to create a high-performance culture, you're in the business of creating high-performance habits. Because culture is nothing more or less than the sum of the habits of the people in our company. And one of those habits is the way that people think about things. And the other, of course, is the context of those people that surround us. So the social context is made up of the connections and relationships we have with people. It's made up of our own view of ourselves in the context of other people, your ego and how you think of yourself, how you rate yourself relative to others. So if you think everyone else is capable of exercising and you're not, it'll create a barrier for you of either embarrassment or fear that will have you not participate. So managers have a role to play in building psychological safety. At Google, they have now spent 6 years studying high-performance teams. And they asked the question, is it the team makeup, the team size? Is it the quality of the people and their experience? What determines high performance from medium performance in teams? And after all of that research, they came up with one answer only, and that is psychological safety. The feeling you have that I can voice my opinions, I won't be ridiculed, what I have to say and what I do will be respected and appreciated, is the essence of high performance at companies. And I would argue that's a big part of the mindset that is created by the way that people behave around us, in particular managers. Society as a whole, the cultural norms that we have in this state and in this country influence us. So in this country, we don't have a norm of exercising at work. After the Second World War in Japan, through government decree, later on, it became a cultural norm for people to exercise at 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock. The national radio would play a particular tune, and the entire country would get up at their desks and exercise. So the wider environment in which we operate has something to say as well on our behavior. And of course, this idea of the social contagiousness of habits is why we care about this. Other people's behavior infects us negatively or positively. That's why if you hang out with grumpy people, you're likely to have a bad day. If you hang out with joyous people, you're likely to smile. If you hang out with people who are in action around their exercise, it will make it a lot easier for you. 2 things left for us before you leave. Please open your calendars or your computers or your cell phones and make a note that on August the 24th, we'll be meeting again. And we'll be talking about healthy options. But just like today was about brain science and how to have your brain perform, but really the subtext was how to make exercise easy at work, given the strong link between exercise and brain performance. The healthy habits we'll be talking about on August 24th are those around grit and resilience. They are the 2 things that are the greatest predictor of consistency and performance in leaders, managers, and employees. So you may not be too familiar with the science of grit and resilience, but that's what we'll be going to work on, and we'll be thinking about how to support people at your companies in building this kind of resilience. Resilience is the ability to stand up in the face of failure, to keep going even when things get difficult. And if it's not clear to you that that's probably one of the things we'll all require in this ever-changing future, I hope that by the end of that session, you'll agree with me it is.